everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Dr. Keith Darrow podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. A lot of you know him because he's been around for a while and he has had great influence in the field of hearing healthcare. Richard Kaner, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Look, I almost said Dr. Richard Kaner, but... right? I look, here's the way I look at it. I know you have your master's. You are an experienced audiologist. I think all your years in audiology, including private practice, I'm going to confer to you the honorary doctorate. So from here out, you are Dr. Richard Kaner to me.
Well, coming from you, that's a big compliment. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So look, Richard, I would love to know, in all seriousness, right? We're both New York City guys, so let's not hold any punches here. I want to know what has kept you going all this time, right? And I feel like, look, just so we're clear here, you are not old, right? It has nothing to do with that. I don't want it to sound like, we're interviewing some old timer. We are actually talking to somebody who's been in private practice and is still in private practice and running the most successful private practice in New York City, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thanks for recognizing that. And I started when I was just out of graduate school. I was 25 or 26 years old, and I had some very, very good mentors. What's kept me going is my belief that we, as audiologists, we have not reached our true goals. We are the best trained, have the most knowledge, the most experience to be the entry point for patients coming into the hearing healthcare field. No one else has the knowledge, the experience, the training that we have. And throughout all these years, I've learned more. There's always more to learn. I've never stopped learning. That's what's kept me going for all these 43 years of being in practice.
So tell me what, look, you've told me this before, and I have it here in my notes, right? You were in the industry when it was, dare I say, illegal, prohibited, whatever dumb word,
right.
You want to use from ASHA. Like, audiologists could not dispense hearing aids. Therefore, our job was to test. And I don't even know what you did after that.
I agree. So my partner and my mentor was one of the first audiologists to buck the system with ASHA, which had prohibited audiologists from dispensing hearing aids for profit. You could dispense for no profit. I don't know why you would do that, but he was one of the first ones to do it. And I saw the need at that time, this was the late 70s, for a professional component to the field of treating hearing loss. It was mostly then hearing instrument specialists, and not that there weren't some good ones around, but the requirements, the training, the knowledge that you needed to become one was very, very minimal, and it was all about sales, and it was all about selling, and not that wasn't an important part, but there was no professional, science-based, fact-based, outcome-based process for treating hearing loss.
And so like, how did that transition? How did you get through that? Right. I feel like you're in Brooklyn. You could have just said, screw this, I'm going to open a pizza shop. It would be a lot easier than dealing with some of the nonsense that has taken place in this field. But what kept you going?
That's a great question. I always held myself to a higher standard. I knew we could grow, but I wanted to grow my practice and build my authority on my terms. I wasn't looking to sell the most units in the area. I wasn't looking to hook up with a manufacturer or insurance companies or third-party administrators or buying groups. I'm fiercely independent, and I kind of staked out my own trail, and I built it slowly, and the business grew, and we started to help more people, and we got more referrals, and I saw the opportunity out there in a area. Brooklyn, New York if it was a city by itself, it'd be the second largest city or third largest city in America. And I saw a great opportunity to continue to build on that promise.
So what do you have to say to whether it be new business owners or even some that have been in it for a while, but they feel like they're in that hamster wheel and they feel like the only help they can get is from a manufacturer, is from a third party. I mean, it's not easy remaining independent in this field, but you've done it. And so tell me about, how you came to that decision, because I'm sure it could have been a lot easier at times to say, you know what, I'm going to get a lower cost of goods, or they're offering marketing, or they're doing this. And so I'll jump on the bandwagon like a lot of people do.
That's a great question. So I felt, and I've been approached, and I'm sure you have in your private practice, companies are willing to give you X numbers of dollars for a promise of X number of units. I didn't feel that worked into my core value of being independent. The staying independent, I would have the manufacturers competing for my business, and I could, with my authority and the fact that we weren't, just tied into one manufacturer, one insurance company, we could kind of gain traction in the marketplace with really better support. We were able to get parts and ear wires and all kinds of domes that we could service our patients in our office and do repairs, while the patient waited, and increase patient satisfaction. And this was for the manufacturers, for the reps themselves, this was a big, step for them, because they would say, well, you can only give you five receivers, but we have to get approval. I said, listen, very simple. If you want me to take care of your patients with your product, you have to give me as much support as I need. And they finally got it. And it is tempting when things are slow, and you're looking at a cash flow that's slow, to reach out to either a third party administrator, a buying group to help you with this. But their interests are not aligned with your interests.
I mean. Yeah, I think that might be the best quote I think I've ever heard when it comes to working with third parties, when it comes to working. So, but how did you do it? Right. I mean, what were some, right? Because there are people that are listening to this, and I get a lot of emails from private practice owners, and I know the question they're going to ask me. So what are some of the services? Who can you rely on that isn't going to just constantly reach into your back pocket, that isn't going to take a percent of your business or your profit, and they do well regardless if you do well or don't do well, right? So it's like, what were some of the resources? What are some of the tools that are out there for the independent audiologist to stay that way?
Okay, so first of all, you have to have the courage of your convictions. If you believe that you're the best trained, the best skilled, you stick with that conviction and don't let anyone tell you differently. And of course, you have to, if you walk the walk, you got to talk the talk. You have to get the knowledge, get the information that every patient's looking for. And then you have to reach out to those entities that are out there. And most recently, it's been Aud Experts for me. And I've been through a lot of groups like yours throughout the years that have tried to help audiologists they're always aligned with a manufacturer or buying group. And when you find one that is truly independent of these other companies and are aligned with your interests, even the other so-called independent consultants would produce services or content that was very cookie cutter. They would have one message that they would repeat 200 times to every practice in the country, and not allow you to become the authority in your area and give you the power, give you the skills to become that empathetic authority.
So right. I mean, look, we did go to different programs, right, but I'm pretty sure your academic program, you didn't have business courses, you didn't have leadership. How did you figure this all out?
Again, I guess it was lucky for me. I had two mentors. But the audiologist that was about 10 years older than me, who was my professor and was the first private practice audiologist in the area to dispense for profit, and My other partner was a hearing instrument dispenser, a hearing instrument specialist, who was one of the first to go back to school to get his degree in audiology. So they had different skills, and I was a sponge. I learned everything I could from them. And I guess the message is to find a colleague, and maybe in a different area that has gone through this, and contact them. Hey, I'm just starting out. What do you recommend? What kind of advice can you give? So, because one of my other core values is to help the next generation of audiologists become truly independent and truly reach their goals.
So I want to summarize. Because I want to make sure that I'm really following you here. Because what I just heard you say was, you want to find somebody who's in the trenches with you, who walks the walk, right? And you see that, and I scratch my head every time I see it in this industry. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're taking advice from somebody who doesn't own a practice, from somebody who doesn't have to deal with payroll and personality issues, and has to, treat patients, and has to actually run their own marketing and hold themselves and hold everybody accountable. Like, how does that even make sense? Right. I mean, so is that, am I right? Is that what I heard you say?
100%. So every, and what's great about being in a profession is that there's annual, conferences, and there's special conferences, and there's educational conferences. So at these conferences, the best part about them, the courses were great, but the after party, so to speak, where you would sit at the bar and have a beer with some people. Where you're from, where's your practice, what do you do? That networking, that those connections, whatever it might be, you share a common interest, a common passion about the field. These is where you get those contacts. What's working for you? Where did you find, the ability to do this? How is that marketing working for you? And those are the things that help me a lot.
And I love what you said, right? Even like the cookie cutter approach, it doesn't work, right? I mean, everybody's in a different area, different, economics, different society, different culture. I mean, I've traveled a lot of this country. I haven't hit all 50 states, but there's a lot of different people out there with different values, different thought process. But I feel like we're all at least trying to, row in the same direction. We're trying to help more of the 42 million people. So we definitely share some common components, but you've got to work with people who get it, who know it, and who live and breathe it with you, right? I mean, you can never rely on somebody who's giving offhanded advice when they don't follow it themselves.
No, there's no question. Each practice is unique, and your avatar patient is unique. The model of your practice is different for every practice. And so some people want to be a low cost, high volume practice. That's a very different model than my practice, which is high volume, high cost practice. So it's just a different mindset of what things you need.
Now let me ask you about it, because that's a great thing, right? Because I know I've met them, and I know you have too, right? You meet people and they're just anybody, right? What patients do you serve? All of them.
All of them.
We do kids, we do adults, we do teenagers, we do ear molds, swim molds, APD, blah, 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 blah. You name it, they do it. I'm like, that's great. Whenever I want a jack of all trades, master of none, I'm coming to you. But seriously, it's right, because the simple business mind says we want everybody, we want to help everybody, right? But the most successful businesses have an avatar client. Right. In our case, it's an avatar patient. Right. How did you come to define that? Because even you, I'm sure at some point was like, we'll take anybody, anybody under the sun.
That's a great point. We've been down that road. At one point, we were doing providing audiologists for the 8 ENT practices that were in Brooklyn, New York. That was crazy town. Okay. No one was ever satisfied. We could never keep anyone happy. So you then start to have a laser focus on what kind of practice you want, what kind of patient you want, the one who values your skills and your abilities, and is willing to. And we know from all of our training, there's always going to be more than enough patients out there that will value the high level, high integrity practice that produces results based on science and based on best practices and guarantees the outcome. And there are many millions of people that value that type of approach. And there are some who are never going to understand why we charge $8,000 for our treatment plan. So those people are not our avatar patient. You have to say no. It's hard to do in our field. But once you realize that it's okay to do that, we'll help them by sending them somewhere else that may benefit them. You feel great about what you're doing. And that's been the change. Laser focus on what we do best, and that's it. We used to do pediatrics. Stop that. You can't be successful if you're all over the place. You have to be focused on what you do best.
I would bet if I called Brooklyn Audiology and said, my son or my daughter needs help, I'm sure you're going to send us to the best place that can help them, right? I mean, I've always said, if one of my kids has got a hearing issue, they should never show up in my own clinic. They need to be at the children's hospital where somebody specializes in it, right? Let's not pretend that that caring for adults with hearing loss is not a specialty. It is.
Absolutely. So we get calls all the time for, do you do central auditory processing testing? And we don't, but we'll send you to a colleague. We've done the research. We've looked around. Here's the best place that I know of that you can get this test done.
But let's be real. A lot of private practice owners either already hit pause and they've moved on to whatever's next on the internet and they're not listening anymore because they think you're nuts, or they're really intrigued because to them, this completely goes against the grain, because what you really just said was, we will turn patients away. And I know every time I say that to somebody, they're like, oh, it's like it takes their breath away. Like, how could you do that? That's not right. That's not nice. Right. Yeah, I mean, so how do you deal with that? I mean, how do you sort of overcome that sense of we can't help everybody?
Right. So a lot of it comes down to mindset. We work with our team on the phone so that they understand what our higher core values are about, treating adults with hearing loss, helping their family, and they know that that's what our specialty is. If someone calls for something that's not our kind of core patient, they'll be referred elsewhere, and it's okay. It helps everybody, so that once we have those patients that understand what we do in our practice and they do well, they'll recommend other patients, and it's okay to be a fount of knowledge for referring people to other professionals.
And really,
you know this, years ago, we advanced diagnostics. We did vestibular testing. We did ABR testing. I had equipment everywhere. I had E&G tables. I had water calorics. I had vomit bags everywhere. Every time I went on a plane, I took a vomit bag just in case we had a patient. It wasn't a great experience to do all those things that we're not good at. Those are best done either in a university-based clinic, a teaching hospital clinic. Those are where it's set up best, not in a private practice.
Or dare I say, a private practice that specializes in vestibular. Right. So that's okay. And so I love what you're saying, which is you've really honed in on who is your avatar patient, which is somebody who ultimately, I think we can just boil down everything we just said in the last 5 minutes, boil it down to somebody who understands and sees the value. I'm going to use the number you said, which is $8,000, right? It could be 8,000, could be 6,000, could be 10, could be whatever it is. Do they see the value in what you offer? And you stood your ground as somebody who's fiercely independent and said, I cannot compromise the way I treat my patients. This is what it costs. I can't compromise cost. I can't cut corners. This is how we treat patients, and this is what it costs.
Right.
If you want me to cut corners, if you want the best deal, I can't do that, but I know somebody who can. Right? There's a guy in central Massachusetts. He sells eyeglasses and hearing aids. I think his glasses are 200, his hearing aids are 400. Like, if price is what this conversation is about and not about value, then I will send you there. But if you understand that, now here's another thing where audiologists don't get it, right? If you understand value, but you genuinely have a price issue, like treating hearing loss is going to take food off your table, well, I have a solution for that too, right? That's why we have a nonprofit. That's why, because no matter what, right, we're going to treat you at this level, period, right? If you see the value, I'm going to do my best to make sure that I can get you the service you need. We will figure out price. That always works itself out.
100%. And it's also the belief in yourself. And this is the hardest thing I have with my younger audiologists is that they of course, and the training that they get in graduate school for the business aspect of audio, the business of audiology is very, very poor. And it's just not set up for them to be successful in this type of process. They don't believe that asking $8,000 is worth it, because their training from their university-based clinics were, well, that's crazy. $8,000, that's crazy, and they don't know what we include in our treatment plan, our treatment process, and it's not crazy.
Yeah, the value proposition, no matter what, I've searched every course syllabus that I could get my hands on, and the value proposition of treating hearing loss is nowhere to be found. Right. Because if you really understood the numbers, if you really understood the value, be it the social, emotional, physical, and the cognitive health that you provide to your patients, I don't care if it's 5,000, 10,000, 20, it's a steal.
It's the best. It is the best deal going. And that is the biggest part of training new audiologists, is to believe that what they're asking the patient to do is more than worthwhile. You're giving them a truly tremendous deal when it comes down to it.
So I want to ask you something a little different, right? So you've said it yourself. You've been in this field for 43 years, back when, fitting hearing aids for profit, which so are you supposed to, I don't know. I don't even want to go there. That doesn't even make sense. I can't even wrap my head around that. To today, when now, right? I mean, we're not that far after, right? Not only did Congress sort of approve OTCs, the president is out there saying, over-the-counter hearing aids are amazing, right? Like, what's next? I mean, you really have seen the evolution, not only from, whether it be trim pots to Bluetooth,
screwdrivers and trim pots, and
right. But like, what's next for hearing healthcare, especially in private practice? What's your crystal ball say?
The crystal ball says that we're just scratching the surface, and there are fewer and fewer of us fiercely independent, practices out there that have a best practices and guaranteed outcomes. The future tells me that because the demographics are changing, people are staying more, are aging, well into their 90s, and younger baby boomers are realizing the need for hearing treatment in their 60s. Our business has never been better situated, or our field has never been situated to grow like we've never grown before, and to become a real factor in treating hearing loss for the 42 million. I think it's very, very bright. The trouble is finding enough team members who believe in that.
So how do you, right? Like you have built something amazing. Right in New York City, amongst all the hustle and bustle, right? You have really created this gem. How do you ensure that that legacy continues to live on, right? Look, I'm not trying to dive deep into your business, but I'm just going to take a guess and say you've at least started to think about what's next for Richard Kaner and Brooklyn Audiology. Right. And how do you prepare for that? Because there are a lot of people like yourself who are just, for whatever reason, they're at the end, they just want out. They want, like, how do you prepare for what's next in your practice? How do you leave a legacy?
That's a great question. And you're right, that question has been on my mind for years and years. What do I want it to look like as I reach the back end of my career, and I still want to go out on top? And you have to start to look at what's important to you. And for me, what is important is to leave a legacy for all those patients that I have treated. Now I'm treating their patients' children and some of their children's children. Okay, if you think about it, and over the course of the last few years, we've been down the road where some companies wanted to maybe buy our company, and they would change the model, and here's a whole ton of money for what you've built, but they would change everything. That didn't speak to me at my core. I said, no, what I would like to do is look for someone who shares my mindset, my core values of treating every patient, treating the 42 million. And we're working with Dr. Rubin, who I handpicked to help us get to that next level and to continue the legacy. So it's really figuring out what you want from the 43 years plus of your blood, sweat, and tears. Thousands and thousands of patients we have treated have felt that process. We want that to continue.
Look, I know a lot of people are going to benefit from listening to this interview. I mean, I just learned a ton about you. I've learned a ton about the field and what it's been through. I am forever appreciative of everything you do. I love I share, and I love your optimism, the future of hearing healthcare. And I love that you have always put the patient first. Even when you could have easily sold out and just said, I'm done. I'm going to go live on the golf course in Florida and just have fun, right? You've said, no, this has to be done the right way. And so you've held on, and now you are, right, starting a little bit of a transition process, right, but making sure that your legacy lives on. It really is possible. Not easy, but it is possible to do. And I love that you said it. You're fiercely independent, and you're ensuring that your practice, even while you're on the golf course, stays fiercely independent. So congratulations for everything you've done in this field and for all the wisdom that you've just imparted. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for the last few years of our relationship. We don't always agree on everything, but we definitely have the same mindset about what our field can become. And what's possible.
Because neither of us believe in cookie cutter. So you're right. So we can absolutely agree to disagree on things, but because we share the same belief system and we share the same core values, right? I welcome diversity, right? That's what will keep this field rich. It will keep it going. Once you get cookie cutter, I don't know. So, but thank you so much for your time today. Honorary Dr. Richard Kaner.
Thank you, Keith.
Have a great day.
You too. Take care. Thanks.